I would like to call to order the January 14th, 2021 City of Southport Board of Aldermen meeting. Welcome to those in attendance, including our citizens and city employees, and to those watching from home. Thank you to city staff for setting up the room and for live streaming our meeting. I in particular would like to welcome those here for the proclamation for Dr. King, and I would also like to recognize the Stateport pilot reporter, Gary Pethy. I asked him how to pronounce his name. It's spelled P-E-T-H-E, who is attending his first Southport Board of Aldermen meeting. So welcome, Mr. Pethy. Thank you for being here. I will now ask Reverend Lowe Davis to lead us in our invocation. This will be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Reverend Davis.
In a few minutes, we'll have a resolution honoring the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., whose birthday is tomorrow, and for whom Monday, January the 18th, is officially Martin Luther King Day. So I think it's appropriate that for our invocation tonight, that it be in his own words. This is a shortened version, much shortened, of his prayer during the service he led on September the 6th, 1953, at Ebenezer Baptist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. Let us pray. Most gracious and all-wise God, we thank thee for all of thy good and gracious gifts, for life and for health, for food and for raiment, for the beauties of nature and human nature. In these turbulent days, when fear and doubt are mounting high, give us broad visions, penetrating eyes, and power of endurance. Help us to work with renewed vigor for a warless world, for a better distribution of wealth, and for a brotherhood that transcends race and color. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Madam Alderman Davis. Those were words appropriate in 1953 and even so today. So thank you for reminding of those sentiments. It seems like longer than a month since our last meeting. I hope everyone has had a good as holiday as possible, considering the pandemic conditions. The gatherings were smaller but safer. I appreciate all that the citizens of Southport are doing to stay safe. With respect to the vaccine, I can assure you that I have personally made it known to the highest level of our state government concerning the need for more shipments of vaccine to our area. And I discussed with local and state health officials in late December and early January a plan to help with distribution of the vaccine. I explained to them that the city will provide the facility, employees to help with registration, assisting with the flow of people, EMS volunteers, that we have retired and working volunteer nurses and doctors to help immunize our citizens, and that I would help with the immunization aspect myself. I'm a proponent of immunizing all healthcare personnel who are in direct contact with COVID-19 patients first, and residents and staff of long-term care facilities. And after that, let us just get the vaccine out, beginning with those at risk by age and comorbidities. And much of Southport and Brunswick County are an at-risk population. The goal is to get the vaccines into the arms of as many people as possible. I appreciate the efforts made by our hospital, Dozier Hospital. It is where those of us that are actively treating COVID-19 patients received our immunization. Navant has major resources, and along with the Brunswick County Health Department, have immunized hundreds of frontline personnel and some of our older citizens in Brunswick County at the Brunswick County Community College, and could do more if the vaccine was available. Novant also has opened their electronic system to the public, not just for Novant patients, called My Chart, and it is a way to register to receive your immunization. The key is that if we continue to be careful, we will not contract the disease, and just know that all mayors, members of our legislature, our county commissioners, all hospitals, and all health departments are working towards the same goal. I'm appreciative of the efforts of state government, and they know Southport is ready to do its part. For now, you can sign up on My Chart through the Novant Hospital, and you can call the local health department at 910-253-2339 from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., and you can also call 211. Go to the NovantHealth.org/COVID vaccine for information on the vaccine. To sign up for an immunization, go to My Novant Health Chart to activate My Chart, MyChart. These are all various ways to obtain information and to find a vaccination site. It has not been easy. Do not give up and do not be discouraged. The process will improve, and know that your mayor is involved. Item D, public comment. Our first speaker will be Mr. Jim Powell. He served the city as an alderman for many years and is our representative on the Bald Head Island Transit Authority. Mr. Powell, if you would give us some background on the Transit Authority and the latest update. For all of those speaking, remove your mask, turn the microphone on, state your name, address, and topic for which you wish to comment. Mr. Powell, please come up to the podium. The board will be allowed to ask questions after his comments. Thank you for being here, sir.
My name is Jim Powell, and I serve on the Bald Head Island Transportation Authority for y'all's pleasure. Y'all appointed me. The authority was created by the legislature, and the legislature created the authority, and it went into action in 17. And we have 11 members on there, and Southport has one. The county has one. Bald Head Island has 3. That would be the mayor and the mayor pro tem and one more. And then the governor has 1 appointee. And then the Senate and the House and the DOT. And the reason the DOT has got a couple of representatives is because even though we are an authority and we are separate from everything else, we will still operate like under the DOT, for example, because the DOT, the ferry service, is that's where the ferry service operates. But we will be on our own as an authority. Now, when the legislature created the authority, this was an idea that they had, that they could see if it was a possibility. This is a pilot system, because they had an idea of creating a couple more authorities, but they want to see how this pilot system works. So that's what the authority is doing. Now, we have been working on it for 3 years, and people want to know why in the world it takes so long. But if we do the due diligence like we're supposed to, it takes a long, long time. And so a lot of our meetings have been in closed session after we opened up to the public. But here lately, we're getting close to it, and it became public that we are going to give the Mitchells $47,750,000 in cash, and then we will get another $6 million for us to operate on till we get everything running like we want to, and then we will collect off the riders that ride the ferry, the parking area, and the barge, and then of course the tram comes in there, but the tram comes with with the ferry ticket. And so we have a lot of riders. I don't know exactly what the count is for the last year, but and when I say last year, 2020, but we have been in the 300,000, 330,000 riders a year. So it's a lot of riders. So as far as it costing the city, it doesn't cost the city a thing. Where the city comes in is that anything that zoning and all will have to come before the planning board on the 56 acres of land that we will inherit out there at the Deep Point. That will be that will come to the authority, 56 acres of that, and the marina and all that. And let's see, is there anything else that I can think of right now? Right this minute, I can't think of anything else. That's it. Is there any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Powell. Does any members of the board have questions?
I do.
Go ahead, Madam
Go
Alderman.
you first. Well, thank you. You mentioned the 56 acres at Deep Point. Do you have something in mind coming up that would go to the planning board?
No, as it stands right now, everything is already approved.
Welcome back, my friend. It's good to see you. To clarify, this $47.5 million is going to put the property into a bundle underneath the commission. They're literally selling or transferring property into that commission entity. Is that correct?
We're gonna give them the $47,750,000, and then everything will be signed over to the authority.
That includes boats,
That's everything.
marina,
Everything.
when you get over the island, well,
The trams. You got
so-
land on the island also
so
involved
sort
in
of
it.
like the license to deliver people over on that
Well,
side.
as it stands right now, we're working under the utility commission. But once we take over, we will get out from under the utility commission, because as a state authority, we will make our own regulations.
Sure. And 300,000, seems like it's about $20 a trip, is that correct?
The average ticket right now is running about 20.
Gotcha, so 6 million in just user fees there. Generic.
I don't know.
Yes, sir.
I don't
Yes, sir.
calculate that right now.
Yeah, I've got the zeros in front of me, I think.
Yeah.
And this will be a perpetual, we'll always have.
Well, the reason the legislature wanted for it to go to create an authority was because this will always guarantee it will be transportation to Bald Head. If it had been sold to a private individual or and say down the road they had bad luck and they declared bankruptcy, they tie the boats up, and then there's no transportation to Bald Head. This way, it will always be transportation to Bald Head. And the only time we will shut down if it's a storm and the wind's above 45 miles an hour.
Yep, and you've got a municipality over there. It's not just a bunch of private owners.
Right.
So you'll establish something that we sort of need to keep going. Great. I told them when we appointed you, there was nobody else that knew as much about Bald Head as you did. So I appreciate your service. And again, it's good to see you, my friend.
Alderman Allen.
Thank you. So I was going to actually touch on this later, but I think now's probably an appropriate time to do it. Welcome back, Mr. Powell. So there's been some conversation lately about what, if any, financial responsibility or obligation the city may have to the new Bald Head Ferry Authority. And I just would like for you to please clarify what, if any, that financial responsibility or obligation
No
is.
financial obligations from the city, period.
All right, good. I hope everybody
This
heard that clearly.
This is a state authority, and we're going to be self-supporting, and that's what it is. We'll be self-supporting.
And I'd point out that's enshrined into state law that we have no financial obligation to the ferry authority whatsoever.
Right.
Thank you very much.
His exact quote was, costing the city not a thing.
That's right.
Yeah.
Doesn't cost the city a thing.
Jim, one of the things too that I remember when it was first presented to the board is that Southport will be made whole for the property tax. That was
right.
part of,
That's right.
because the land, this 56 acres will come out of Southport's jurisdiction city. It becomes the authority land, kind of like public whatever, right?
I think the proper name for that was like a franchise.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So we'll be made whole tax-wise. Now, and it doesn't include, I'm asking a question, it doesn't include the pleasure marina, that they're maintaining that. You're talking about the ferry portion of it.
That's right. That's right. That's right. That piece of property, I don't remember the exact acreage, but somewhere in the neighborhood of 71 acres. And so we get the largest portion, and then Bald Head maintains the other. And my understanding is they're going to develop it. In other words, put some high-dollar housing down there. So, yeah.
Anyone else? Any other questions for Mr. Powell? Thank you so much for coming. Appreciate your service as always to the city and now on the authority. So thank you, sir.
We thank you.
Okay, Madam Clerk, is there anyone else that would like to speak in public comment?
Yes, Mr. David Baker.
Okay, please, to the podium, Mr. Baker. Welcome. Oh, so, you know what, Mr. Baker, I just reminded my council that the best time for you to speak is during the public hearing for your property. So we'll just, I apologize, but yeah, it was a good exercise. Thank you. Anyone else, Madam Clerk? Were there any letters that were sent that need to be read? Okay, good. And is there anyone else that would like to speak that did not sign up? Yes, sir. Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Matt Thorne. I am a local business owner. I have the Saucy Southerner located in Southport. I'm sure some of you have been there. Oh, good. I'll throw it down. I've recently been made aware of something regarding a change in sign ordinance and other ordinance that are going to be coming up. It's been debated, but I'm not trying to go into a full public conversation about it tonight. I'm asking that the changes that are being projected or requested, that there be a committee put together involving business owners to discuss the changes. I've seen and heard about some of the changes that are coming and feel as though these will permit or prevent and also cause harm to us as local business owners, as being able to promote our businesses, being able to put our signs out is very important, and having regulations on the ones that we've had for some of us. I'm a new business, but I know some of the other business owners I've talked to have had these signs for years, and these signs are not cheap. And in a time of COVID, business is not as it normally would be. I'm asking that that you guys allow us to come together and have an open conversation about what would benefit not only the city, and also meeting a good uniform decision that would benefit the businesses, all of us, to have something that brings us all together, that won't cost business a lot of money, but will also allow us to promote our business fairly, openly, and not be constricted on a sense of just one look. We need that unity as a community, but I also feel we need to also have our individuality, and that's important. And those signs allow for very good promotional aspects. They allow for our business to be seen, and I think coming to a better way to look at this would really be beneficial for us as a community. I've reached out to a couple other business owners that are also here this evening, and I'm sure they might have aspects to throw into this, but I just wanted to voice that we would like to be a part of this conversation and that it be a community business effort, not just a decision made and without us having a voice. So, any questions?
No, thank you. Thank you for your comments. And we have city planner here, chairman of the planning board is here, our two liaisons to the planning board is here. And so we have heard you, and we certainly will. You know, the UDO is a living document, so we certainly can look at that. And you may even want to go to a planning board meeting and speak there as well, if you have not. All right, thank you. And thank you, Madam Clerk. Next item, item E, approval of the agenda. Tonight we have 4 public hearings. The parking overlay district, it has been revised. We have a zoning map amendment and an annexation request for 1208 North Caswell Avenue, and a zoning map amendment for the Haven subdivision, and several other items, including employee sick leave. I would also like to add one item to our agenda, item 4 on the consent agenda. That will be a resolution to dispose of surplus equipment, a fire truck. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Moved.
Okay, Alderman Sharkey, and second by Mayor Pro Tem. All in favor? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Next is our ethics statement. If any members know of any conflict of interest or the appearance of a conflict of interest with respect to the matters on the agenda, please so state at this time. Anyone with any conflicts? Okay, thank you. Approval of the consent agenda. And this includes a proclamation honoring Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., approval of the December 10th, 2020 regular meeting minutes, and approval of a water distribution AIA project contract amendment. AIA, Asset Inventory and Assessment Plan. This acronym is first cousin to I&I, infiltration and inflow. So it should be interesting. This is to digitally map the city's water distribution system. This is a grant obtained by the city planner in 2018. Due to the pandemic, we have asked and received an extension on this project. I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay, Mr. Lombardi, second by Mr.
Second.
Allen. All in favor? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda, I would like to read the proclamation concerning Dr. Martin Luther King, and I would ask the members of the Martin Luther King Celebration Committee and those who are here for the proclamation to stand with me at the podium. From the Southport pilot, January 13th, 2021, the Martin Luther King Celebration Committee of Southport, the Southport Oak Island Interchurch Fellowship, and the NAACP are not holding activities and events as they have in past years due to the COVID-19 pandemic. According to Rhonda Davis, chairperson of the Martin Luther King Celebration Committee of Southport, the organization is asking all community churches to ring their bells or chimes 12 times at noon on Monday, January 18th. And I quote from Ms. Davis from the pilot. Also, we ask each individual to stop whatever you are doing at noon and pray for our nation and nonviolence teaching of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., end of quote. Even though we cannot march as we did last year in January, we stand together to celebrate his life as I read this proclamation. Whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. changed our nation forever through his leadership, service, and clarity of vision. And whereas Dr. King devoted his brief life to strengthening the content of the American character and called on our nation to live up to its founding principles of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all its citizens. Whereas Dr. King helped to organize efforts, plan events, and lead marches seeking advancements in the rights of African Americans to vote, for desegregation, for recognition and respect for labor rights, and to ensure other basic civil rights. And whereas Dr. King was one of the leaders of the successful Montgomery bus boycott in 1955, which sought desegregation of the public buses in the South. And whereas Dr. King helped found the Southern Christian Leadership Conference in 1957 and served as its first president. Whereas Dr. King helped organize the 1963 nonviolent protests in Birmingham, Alabama, that drew national attention to the struggle for civil rights and to the hateful and brutal responses of local law enforcement. Whereas in his famous letter from a Birmingham jail, Dr. King wrote that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And whereas Dr. King also helped to organize the 1963 March on Washington, during which he delivered his eloquent and moving I Have a Dream speech. And whereas Dr. King received the Nobel Prize in 1964 for his work toward passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and for combating racial inequality through insistent use of civil disobedience and nonviolent resistance. Whereas Dr. King helped to organize the monumentally inspiring Selma to Montgomery marches in 1965, which assisted advocacy for passage of the Voting Rights Act that year to guarantee all African American citizens the right to vote. Whereas in later years, Dr. King and the SCLC continued working for social change and justice by fighting housing conditions in Chicago, seeking the alleviation of poverty, and opposing needless American wars. And whereas Dr. King was supporting the garbage workers in Memphis, Tennessee, and planning a national occupation of Washington, D.C., to be called the Poor People's Campaign when he was assassinated in Memphis in 1968. Whereas Dr. King was posthumously awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom and the Congressional Gold Medal, numerous cities and states began in 1971 to establish Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a holiday, was given recognition through a U.S. federal holiday in 1986. And whereas through his determination, spirit, and resolve, Dr. King helped lift souls and lead one of the greatest movements for equality and freedom in history. And whereas his dreams remain unrealized in the United States, educational opportunities remain unequal along racial and other socioeconomic lines, de facto segregation continues in many areas. Voting rights have been curtailed and are under further attack. African Americans are disproportionately impacted by the criminal justice system and new Jim Crow laws, and the civil rights of all Americans face new and persistent threats. And whereas we observe Dr. King's birthday on January 18, 2021, the city of Southport encourages all Americans to celebrate his memory by performing acts of kindness through service to others. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Mayor Joseph P. Hatem, and the Board of Aldermen encourage all citizens of Southport and throughout the state of North Carolina be encouraged to honor Dr. King by living out his teachings as we continue to work for the day when the dignity and humanity of every person is respected. Thank you all for being here. We'll march together next year. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, agenda item 1. public hearing zoning map amendment for the parking overlay district. The recently adopted UDO included a revision concerning parking regulations specific to CBD, Central Business District. Every time I see that acronym, I think common bile duct. But anyway, Central Business District. Thank you, I appreciate that. You have diagrams in your agenda packet, and there should be copies for the public. I declare the public hearing open at this time. City Planner, Mr. Thomas Lloyd. Any comments from the public, and then any questions from the board will come after Mr. Lloyd's presentation.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as the mayor said, this is as a result of the UDO rewrite that we completed in September of 2020. There are no parking requirements within the CBD as a part of that UDO rewrite. In the past, there was a parking exemption or reduced parking standards applied to this parking overlay district, but that has now been tied to the Central Business District and not to the parking overlay district. So as a result of this, the parking overlay district is redundant and is not necessary for it to be on our zoning map anymore. So just to be clear, this isn't changing the current exception that properties within this zoning district have to off-street parking. We have covered that by tying it to the Central Business District. This rezoning affects 50 properties within that zoning district. So this request is simply just removing that redundant zoning district off of our official zoning map. At their November 19th and December 17th meetings, the Planning Board voted to recommend approval of the proposed zoning map amendment, and they stated that this amendment is consistent with the overall goals, objectives, and policies of the land use plan. My recommendation is that the amendment be approved as well, since it is now redundant and that we do have those regulations tied specifically to Central Business District. So the Board of Aldermen must adopt a statement of consistency after hearing the public comment, and also adopt the ordinance. You should have gotten a revised copy of the statement of consistency as well as the ordinance. The city attorney and myself did some wordsmithing on that after the initial draft was sent out with your agenda packets. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have or that any citizens might have.
Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak concerning this issue? Okay. Any questions from the board for Mr. Lloyd? I declare the public hearing closed. Thank you, Mr. Lloyd. And now I will entertain a motion from the board.
I'd like to move approval. Would you like me to read the consistency statement?
Just make a motion to approve it. Yeah.
I make a motion that we approve the statement of consistency as well as the ordinance amending the zoning map to remove the parking overlay district.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion carried. Second agenda item, consideration of a zoning map amendment that would rezone 1208 North Caswell Avenue from BD Business District to MF Multifamily. This has gone before the Planning Board, and they look at rezoning with respect to the Southport County Land Use Plan and look at such requirements. Is it designed to lessen congestion in the streets, secure safety from fire and other dangers, to promote health and general welfare, prevent overcrowding of land? Does it adversely impact any CAMA AECs, areas of environmental concern? I mention this to let the public know the work that is required by the city planner and the planning board before it's presented to the Board of Aldermen. There's a statement of consistency and recommendation, and Mr. Lloyd will lead this discussion. So I declare the public hearing open at this time. Mr. Lloyd.
All right, so as the mayor said, this is at 1208 North Caswell. It is a .141 acre, which is roughly 6,138 square feet tract that is currently in the ETJ, and the applicants would like to rezone it from its current zoning BD to multifamily because they were hoping to build a single-family house on that property, and BD is not a permitted use in the, single-family is not a permitted use in the BD zoning district. Their narrative is attached to this memo. As part of any rezoning process, the Board of Aldermen must review the zoning map amendment, and a statement must be provided as to the consistency of the proposal with the city's comprehensive plan and its future land use plan. The future land use plan shows this area as medium density residential, and properties to the west and south are zoned multifamily. But in the planning board's review of this amendment, they reviewed it at the November 19th and December 17th meetings. There are some concerns that were brought up with the minimum dimensional standards for a multifamily lot, and the planning board was not comfortable rezoning a non-conforming lot that small to multifamily because it is over half of what the minimum standards would be for a multifamily lot in our new UDO. And non-conforming lots in the R10 zoning district are able to have proportional setbacks, but not in the multifamily zoning district. They also brought up what some of the required buffer yards are for new development where multifamily zoning is adjacent to business district. And these buffer yards are based on the zoning district and not based on the use. So the requirement where multifamily zoning is adjacent to BD is a 10-foot type B buffer yard, where it would be adjacent to BD, which would be, to the rear of the property, as well as the adjacent properties. This could cause issues due to the size of the lot and trying to have an actual footprint where you can build a house with that buffer yard and with the setbacks, and not being able to use proportional setbacks. With the previous iteration of the ordinance, those proportional setbacks on non-conforming lots were tied to whether they were a non-conforming lot. In our current ordinance, it is tied to a R10 non-conforming lot. So it is consistent with the CAMA future land use map, but due to the limitations with the size of the lot as well as the buffering requirements, the planning board voted to recommend denial, and that it was inconsistent with the overall goals and objectives of the land use plan. But due to these issues that were brought up, staff recommends denying the amendment as currently proposed. But that being said, I think this area of North Caswell is something we need to look into cleaning up. It would make sense to work with the property owners in this area to try to rezone these properties, or at least to see if they're interested in rezoning these properties to R10. Because to the north of this tract, there's actually a large lot that is owned by the same owner, but it's actually individual lots of the same size of this. And it looks like it's combined into one lot, but the county actually just combined it for tax purposes. So technically, all those are still individual lots. So it might be that those property owners want to look towards having those as single-family lots in the future as well. And if we could just clean all of this up at the same time, I think it would make sense for property owners in this area.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lloyd. Is anyone that would like to speak in public comment? Now would be your time to Mr. Baker. Be great, thank you.
The land you're talking about is my lot, and you know, it's not big enough to put a multifamily on there. I mean, it had to be real extremely tiny. So, and it's zone business, and it's not really good for business there either. The only thing you can put on there is 1,400 square foot house. So it's the only thing that you can properly put on there and fit in the lot, you know, be able to get outside. And, oh, okay. I talk real low. There you go. Is that better? Sorry about that. Well, but we've done all the steps that we know to do. We filled out all the forms and kind of been working on this for months. And then it took like 2 months to get a paper filled out, not from y'all, not the city or nothing like that. And it's actually I had somebody interested in buying it, and the realtor said it sold, so it's kind of affecting her living. And now they had backed out because it took so long to go over it and go over it and go over it. And so now I've drove up here from Raleigh to see if I could get it done or say what I can say. I'd like to know what I can do, because it's not big enough for a duplex. It's just not feasible. And I don't really know what else to say, except it's holding up me from doing anything. And I went ahead and bought another lot in Cade's Code because I can go ahead and do something. And I'm sitting here holding money with that. So it's kind of, I don't want to wait till all the other homeowners decide to do it, because that could go on for years. You know, they got to get it, they'll have to get it all surveyed and all that. And it took me 2 months to get a 15-minute job surveyed. So that, I don't see where it would even be possible I'm fine with everybody else getting rezoned in there. I just want to know what I got to do. If y'all could help me out, I'd certainly appreciate it, because this is money setting.
Question.
Yeah.
Would you have any objection to following the suggestion of the planning board and the town planner that you seek to make this R10?
Well, is R10 single family?
Yeah.
That's what I want.
Yeah, Mr. Lloyd has already said that and Mr. Lloyd, could you reiterate that to clean up this whole area,
Yeah.
you recommend that that area be rezoned to R10, which would sort of alleviate his dilemma. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, there's about 2 blocks in that area that are in the same situation as Mr. and Mrs. Baker's property. And, you know, I think it's certainly worth reaching out. I mean, there's really not that many property owners because they're large tracts. There's only 3 property owners total. And I think it's certainly worth reaching out to all 3 of those property owners and seeing if it's something they're interested in.
This is the dead zone behind the trailer park area that connects Cade's Cove.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Been a dead zone forever, and there's a reason for that. We probably do need to address it. Is he the only small parcel?
That's correct. He is the only small parcel.
Yeah, well, he's the only small individual parcel owner. The larger parcels have merely been combined for tax reasons by the county. They're still small parcels.
That R10.
They're all still, I guess, 33-foot lots.
That is 10,000 square foot. He's got 6,000.
Yes, they're really all in the same boat, because all of their lots are the same size. They've just looked like they're larger because they've been combined by the county for tax purposes. But they would run into the same situation if they were trying to develop their lots, because their lots are the same size.
Is the size of 6,185 square feet big enough for business under our current UDO? Could you properly put some kind of a business district property there with the parking requirements and everything?
When you get into what the buffering requirements are for business, and then just whether that's a good location for business district or not, I'm not sure it really makes sense for it to be there, because it's off the main drag. It's not on Howe Street. You know, it's there on Caswell. You know, certainly if the properties were bigger, it might make sense, but I'm not sure it makes sense in this situation.
What I'm asking is to kind of point out that the R10 rezoning is more of a good logical decision. Yeah, and this would be a similar process if you reached out to the other property owners to what happened with Lord Street, would you say, where you did it?
That's correct.
You got a petition, everybody signed on, and then we could do it.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done this several times throughout the years. We've cleaned up some problem areas that have just, a lot of them were split zone parcels, and we also took some that were business district that had single family residential homes on them, and then we rezoned them to what they're supposed to be R10. So it really very much so being the same token as that kind of thing.
Okay, Mr. Eisenberg would like to interject something.
Mr. Baker, I think what Thomas is trying to do is to help you, because if we rezone the property as requested, it would virtually make your lot unusable. Whereas if it goes to R10, you still can build a single-family house on R10. And it won't have the same, Thomas, tell me if I'm wrong, but it won't have the same restrictions, or it's looser than if it was zoned to multifamily.
Yeah, it wouldn't have the buffering requirements, and he would be allowed to have a reduction in his setback requirements as well, since the lot is 6,000 square feet. The setbacks would be proportional to what that would be for a 10,000 square foot lot.
There.
So it'd be 60% of what the normal side yard setbacks would be and rear yard setbacks.
Yeah, so I think the R10 would allow you to do more of what you want to do than the multifamily.
Are any of these parcels, do they connect from Caswell to Howe?
I do not believe so. I don't think so.
So it's all, they're all Caswell properties, not Howe Street properties?
Yes, they're all Caswell. They're in between Caswell and Lord.
Mr. Lloyd, if Mr. Baker is agreeable to this, does he have to go through, hoops of fire again and all that paperwork and time to make this change to R10?
Well, I think it's something that the city would initiate, certainly if we can get the other two property owners on board. And, obviously it would have to go to the planning board and go through those normal channels. But, if we can get the other two property owners on board, they wouldn't have to pay a fee or anything else, especially if the city initiates it, so.
So really, we have a solution to his dilemma. Okay.
Mr. Baker, I want to make sure that you understand that this board and I think the city is sympathetic to what the issue that you're facing. And I would personally apologize that we can't and haven't apologize that there's not an easier solution for you. It's just the unfortunate reality of it. I think we all feel for that. It's an odd situation, unfortunately. Mr. Eisenberg, would it be considered spot zoning to just rezone his parcel to R10, even though that's a less intensive use than the surrounding use? I always thought that spot zoning was more about placing a more intensive use surrounded by lower intensive uses. Is that?
We felt like that would raise an issue there on that, but I think if we could combine those other tracks, that would certainly make it more legal to do it that way.
Okay, well, I just hope we can, as Mr. Baker correctly pointed out, I know he's getting frustrated and he's got money tied up and would like to see this resolved sooner than later. So I hope we can move it as quick as we can. I know Mr. Baker, unfortunately, it's not going to be there's a good possibility it's not going to be like a super quick process. Just that's simply the reality of it. But I think we'll all certainly try to make it go as quickly as we possibly can.
How much time are you talking about? Well, we've been dealing with it for a while. Yeah. And across the street and down the street, all of them are single families. And how long would it take to call them and get a decision?
you know,
I'm not upset with y'all. Y'all doing your job.
Sure.
And I do appreciate it. I meant to say that to start off with.
Well, just go ahead and get it on the agenda for the, I guess, February planning board meeting, right? I mean, would that be reasonable, Thomas?
well, you got to talk to the property owners first, right?
Well, that's over a month away. I would think you could talk to 2 property owners in 30 days easily. Yeah, well, you could do that. That doesn't take long. Yeah, I would put it on the February agenda.
With luck, we could do it in, what, March, right? The quickest it could happen would be at our March meeting, which is about the middle of March, so 2 months.
If it's approved then, how much longer would it be before I could do so?
Once it's approved, you can,
Thomas to answer that, but, I mean, basically, at that point, you could then apply for a building permit. I mean, so, I mean, the next day, you could go to City Hall and apply for a building permit.
Are y'all saying if they agree, then y'all gonna agree? Is that what we're looking at?
Y'all,
If the other landowners agree, then y'all agree.
I would say that the sense of, I would go so far as to say the sense of the board, I mean, obviously, none of us can speak for the other members, but I would say clearly tonight,
Well, if you go
the
back-
sense of the board is that we're probably all in favor of seeing that area rezoned R10.
yeah, we would go with the recommendation of the city planner and the planning board.
Okay.
I mean, it's
'Cause
pretty,
I've already cleaned my lot up,
yeah.
and you go beside it, there's all kinds of trash in the woods and all that. So it's an eyesore. But if that's all you can do, I appreciate your time.
Yes, sir. All right, thank you. Well, first you have to let me finish what we're doing, the public hearing. And then we have a city planner who knows exactly what needs to be done, and he has a solution. He calls 2 other property owners. They'll probably agree to go to R10. It's on the agenda of the planning board in February. It's approved in March. The man starts, building after that, is the way it looks from my point of view. So is there anyone else that would like to speak during this public hearing? Any other questions from the board? Thank you, Mr. Baker. We have a solution to your dilemma, absolutely. We will declare the public hearing closed, and I will entertain a motion as to whether or not to approve or deny the proposed zoning map amendment change for 1208 North Caswell Avenue from BD to multifamily.
Point of order, Mr. Eisenberg, could the applicant withdraw his application right now verbally? And denying it tonight would not create a problem with the inability to reapply for zoning in 6 months?
The city initiates it.
I'll make a motion that we adopt the consistency statement denying the rezoning for the parcel located at 1208 North Caswell Avenue from business district to multifamily.
You have a motion by Mr. Allen, second by Mr. Spencer. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Great, motion carried. Thank you. Agenda item 3, public hearing. Annexation request for 1208 North Caswell Avenue. A resolution was adopted at our last meeting setting a public hearing on the annexation for the January 14th meeting. I declare the public hearing open. I call on City Planner Thomas Lloyd.
Okay, so this is the same property that that we just discussed in the last agenda item. Yeah, I mean, it's just time for the public hearing for the annexation. I talked to Mike earlier. Maybe it would be appropriate to have the public hearing and see what the public has to say, and then, you know, given what just happened with the last agenda item, not act on it this evening. So if the board has any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. Obviously, the applicant is also here as well.
Okay, any questions for Mr. Lloyd or anyone else that would like to speak during this public hearing concerning 1208 North Caswell Avenue and the annexation? Okay. I declare the public hearing closed. Mr. Attorney, if you would like to comment on this?
Yeah, Mr. Baker, are you wanting to, you have the right to withdraw your annexation petition at any time. Now, of course, if you do that, then that means that after the rezoning, the other way, you're going to have to come back with that. And we just need to clarify before we vote, are you wanting to proceed with the annexation request so that when the rezoning happens, you'll be ready to have water and sewer?
Well, I don't really want to be taken into the city unless I'm going to be able to do something with the property. Of course, I guess that's, if I have to reapply, would that add more time and all that?
I believe that what we could probably do tonight, if you ask us, is don't withdraw your petition for annexation, but ask for the board to defer consideration until maybe the March meeting.
Yeah, let's do that then.
Okay. And that would be what, that way you don't have to go through with paying up another fee and having another public hearing. The public hearing has happened tonight, so that requirement is met. The next step normally would be the board just votes on your petition. But in this situation, you have the right at any time before the board votes, you have the right to withdraw a voluntary annexation petition. But in order to keep the timetable going, you may want to just ask the board to defer the consideration of your petition until the March meeting.
Okay. You may ask that, or you going
I think they know that's what,
mean,
if that's okay with you.
If that's what
yeah,
you
I
would like,
prefer it to the
we'll
March
take care of
meeting
it.
then.
Yeah.
I'm new at this.
No, thank you. So am I. I've only been here a year, so we're good. He's a city planner. He knows a
Yeah.
lot more than I do.
Is that it?
All right.
You know, I think what Mr. Baker would like would be a motion from someone on the board to defer consideration of the annexation ordinance until the March meeting.
Second.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate y'all working with me.
Yeah, thank you, sir. A motion to defer to the March meeting concerning annexation of 1208 North Castle Avenue. The motion is made by Mr. Spencer and Mr. Allen at the same time. I believe it was seconded by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Baker. I think you'll have a good outcome, sir. All right, agenda item 4. Public hearing zoning map amendment for the Haven subdivision. This subdivision is off Burrington Avenue and is adjacent to the historic home that was moved from the Episcopal Church to that location. The planning board has looked at this and has made their recommendation as to the request by the owner to be rezoned from multifamily to R10, which will decrease the population density. I declare the public hearing open and call on Mr. Lloyd.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So yeah, this is for 3 tracks, and it's a little over 2.8 acres. And this was formerly a small lot cluster development. and they're looking to change it from multifamily to a R10 zoning district in order to have, 10,000 square foot single family lots there. So the applicant feels like it's compatible with the land use plan because everything around that property to the northeast and the west is all zoned plan unit development and R10. So there is single family around it. It certainly matches the character of the surrounding area. The planning board reviewed this at their November and December meetings, and they voted to recommend approval of the proposed zoning map amendment. And they stated that the amendment is consistent with the overall goals, objectives, and policies of the land use plan. If you look in your packet, it shows the existing zoning map as well as the future land use zoning map, and that area is consistent with what this request is asking. So the proposed rezoning would reduce the density from 32 units to 8 units. So I'm sure the adjacent property owners are probably happy with that as well. So yeah, the board must first adopt a statement of consistency like you did earlier, and then vote on that zoning map amendment ordinance. I'm happy to answer any questions that anybody might have.
Is there anyone else that would like to speak in public comment? Public hearing? Okay. And any questions for Mr. Lloyd concerning the subdivision from the board? All righty. We will go out of the, declare that the public hearing is now closed. And I will entertain a motion concerning the subdivision in the Haven, whether or not we'll adopt a zoning map amendment, rezoning parcels of the Haven subdivision from multifamily to R10. Okay.
And considering that this will be a less impactful type of development for this area, there have not been any identified complications as far as impact to the neighbors and the town in general with rezoning this. I may make the motion that we adopt the statement of consistency that has been presented to us to approve the proposed zoning map amendment because it is consistent with the overall goals, objectives, and policies of the land use plan of Southport.
And the ordinance. And the ordinance.
And the ordinance
Yeah.
that accompanies it for the rezoning from, what was it, multifamily to R10.
Okay. We have a motion by Alderman Sharkey to approve the zoning change as well as the consistency statement as well as the ordinance. And we have a second by Mr. Lombardi. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay, I think this is will be good for this community. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carried. Thank you. Okay. Item, and Mr. Lloyd, thank you for your long presentations and excellent presentations tonight. Thank you. Okay. Item 5, appointment and alternate delegate for the Cape Fear Council of Government for 2021. It's been traditional for the mayor to serve in that capacity. I will continue to do so with Mayor Pro Tem Mosteller as the alternate. Item 6, employee emergency paid sick leave policy for COVID-19. City Manager, Mr. Hargrove.
Thank you, Mayor. The Consolidated Appropriations Act of 2021, commonly called the Stimulus Bill and signed into law on December 27, 2020, let the leave requirements of the Families First Coronavirus Response Act expire. No longer are employers obligated by law to grant employees 80 hours of paid sick leave for COVID-19 related reasons. So at this point that has expired. We've been in touch with the School of Government. The School of Government is recommending that we extend this coverage until March 31st. And the resolution in front of you simply says so. The one thing that you'll need to be aware of is that people that have already, or employees that have already used up this initial 80 hours will not be eligible for this extension. And I would like to know what the pleasure of the board is, whether you would like to extend this 80 hours of emergency leave for COVID-19 related illnesses. So what is your pleasure?
I make a motion. Go ahead. Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Madam Alderman Davis and a second by Mayor Pro Tem to adopt the extension of this policy in terms of COVID-19 and employee leave. Any further discussion? Yeah, I think it's very important that we continue this policy. And all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Hargrove, for that. Next up, committee reports. And we'll start with Alderman Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. The Yacht Basin Small Area Plan Ordinance Committee met for the second time on January 5th. We had a very good meeting. We had a nice presentation from city planner giving the committee an overview of the existing conditions in the Yacht Basin area, including zoning, current land use, future land use. We spent a lot of time talking about the flood requirements down there and what that means on a practical level to rebuilding of the existing structures in the event they're damaged or destroyed. Mayor Pro Tem and I were on a phone call with some folks from the state. We got some good preliminary information about potential mitigations to some of those requirements, specifically the height requirements that we're continuing to follow up on. So we're continuing to work on that. The next meeting of the committee will be on January 19th. We're going to engage in a little exercise where each member of the committee will bring forward their 3 top short-term projects or things that could be done to improve the Yacht Basin, their 3 medium-term and their 3 long-term projects. And we'll go through a little exercise of ranking and prioritizing those in order to start putting some meat on the bones, if you will, to start coming up with a plan of action that the committee will eventually recommend to this body. We'll also are planning on meeting twice in February and continuing to work on that plan and continuing to move forward. So if anybody has any questions, we'll be happy to answer them.
Questions for Alderman Allen? Okay. Thank you for serving on that committee. Thank you both for the work that you're doing. Alderman Spencer. Committee report.
Just briefly, I'm on the 4th of July committee, and we've got a meeting the 18th where we're sort of just holding tight to see how COVID is going to be playing out in the coming year. And we're also looking into the budget, making sure that we're spending money wisely and that we're representing Southport in the 4th of July and its values. But otherwise, that's all I've got to.
Thank you. Thank you for serving on that committee. Alderman Sharkey? Okay. Thank you. Lo Davis.
Forest Street Committee, the plan is that the planting of 10 live oaks in various spots in the public right-of-way will be on January the 25th, of course, weather permitting. And I'd like to point out that there's a new link to the Forestry Committee website. You go to the City of Southport website, and then there's a new link to get to the Forestry Committee site, and that is cityofsouthport.com/forestry committee. There's a lot of good information there, including what trees are native to this area and what trees are actually invasive. I mean, you may want a coconut palm in your yard. Think twice, please. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Mr. Lombardi.
Yeah, the beautification committee met on January 2nd for a cleanup, and we did a little different thing this time. We teamed up with Scott Lynn of the Forestry Department and went into the cemetery and trimmed all the shrubbery, basically anything that was over the gravestone, and you couldn't get into the area, so we trimmed it all back and brought it out to the curb for the city to take it away. And it looks a heck of a lot better, and you can get into all these areas without much problem now. Thank you.
Thank you, and a lot of souls appreciate that, so thank you. Mayor Pro Tem. Okay, all right, thank you. Manager's report, Mr. Hargrove.
Thank you, Mayor. I have quite a few items to discuss with you all this evening. First of all, I'd like to go over a few financials, where we are year to date with our budget. Most departments are right where they need to be, so we're making nice progress. Our property taxes, year to date, we've collected about 70%. Last year at this time, we were at 73.66, so we're really not that far behind. We do have some wonky numbers in the administration because most of that is related to Hurricane Isaias, and so once that money comes back from FEMA, that will probably, well, it will level out the playing field with that. So we're doing pretty well financially. So I'm real pleased with that. I also would like to discuss with you tonight the utility extensions. In February of 2020, we stopped charging disconnect fees and cutting water off for residents due to COVID-19. In July of 2020, we did start cutting water off for non-payment or late payment of bills. There was a decision was made to continue this way until the January meeting, and we would revisit this. So now it's time to make a decision. We could have made this as an administrative decision, but since the Aldermen, you will be the ones that folks contact to complain, I thought it was best that y'all make this decision. So what we would like to do, one of the things we haven't done is charge disconnect fees. And I would like to know what the board's pleasure is. Should we continue not charging disconnect fees? Most other municipalities in the county are. So we're not cutting water off, but I mean, we still continue to cut water off, but do you want to move forward and charge disconnect fees, or would you like to hold off on that until we get through this pandemic? I'd like to know what the board's pleasure is on this before we move forward.
I'd prefer that we don't charge the fee. Basically, that's one of our employees going out twisting the knob. Are we doing that? I know it's putting a little burden on them, but we're already stretched to our end. So, from my point of view, I would like to not make it any harder than it already is for a period of time. 3 months, 6 months.
Do you have a lot of potential customers that are not paying?
I can't give you what that percentage is.
I mean, is there a lot or just a few?
It's a significant amount.
Oh, there is. Thank you.
A lot of times they're they don't get the phone call from Teresa or one of the ladies at the front desk, more than likely, because they're generally turned back on pretty quick most of the time, right?
Anyone else?
I just had a question. Those are just disconnect fees for non-payments, what you're talking about, not disconnect fees for some other reason? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to see us continue to not charge.
Yeah, I agree with Alderman Spencer.
Alderman Allen, second by Mr. Spencer. Any further discussion? Oh, Alderman Allen, would you repeat it for her?
I make a motion that we continue to not charge the disconnect fees for non-payment. Where are we, January? I'd say through the rest of the fiscal year, but is that, if that's acceptable?
What's your
I was
motion,
gonna ask for an
Alderman
update
Sharkey?
in March. Could we revisit it in March? So we'll continue through February, and then in March, if you're seeing, or, I mean, give us feedback on, are we seeing consistent application? Is it rising? Is it, lowering? And then maybe we'll make that decision to follow through the rest of the fiscal year, and after that, and you won't have to report back to us monthly.
Mr. Allen, you good with that? I mean, okay. So, no,
Should we be specific and talk about reconnection fees? Because like is there a fee when someone moves and disconnects? That's just a question.
Motion was, I think, included disconnect for non-payment.
Okay.
yeah,
To
to the March meeting.
Till the March meeting.
Yes. Is that correct, Alderman Sharkey? Okay. All right, any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you. I would like to make the board aware, I've been receiving a tremendous amount of reports, calls, emails concerning speeding traffic around town, specifically around the Park Street area, Fodell Avenue, Stewart Avenue. So I'd like to put on your radar that we are getting a lot of complaints about this, and we're having some inquiries about what we can do to slow this down using traffic calming devices such as speed bumps and speed tables and the like. I'd like to just put that on your radar because this is a situation that seems to be gaining traction in our community, and we probably need to look at that to address ways that we can solve this to get some of these people to slow down. With that being said, I think it's a perfect segue to take this opportunity to talk about the traffic concerns that we have with the Howe Street Sewer Project. And in this part, I would like for our police chief, Todd Coring, and Assistant Public Services Director, Tom Stanley, to come to the podium and explain their logic and their rationale for why we put our speed signs where they are and how we're routing traffic at this particular time.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Mr. Stanley.
So, I get a lot of calls too, just so you know, nonstop. As everybody knows, there really is no good detour around Southport. Even though everything is a square in Southport, every block goes to the very next block. it seems no matter where we change the detour to or how we reroute the detour, we're getting the same calls daily. We're choosing the routes around the active blocks of the construction. Obviously on, construction in the middle of Howe Street. So on the west side of town, Lord is the next street, and then a little bit in Caswell, because between West and Westmore Street, Lord's not a really good place to send trucks down due to limbs. And on the east side of town, Atlantic was our first choice, the contractor's first choice, and most logical choice, because it's a straight shot between Eastmore and East Leonard. But due to tree concerns, we did reroute it from off of Atlantic Street to Rhett Street to East Brown to Atlantic, which then goes to Leonard Avenue, and then of course everybody goes back to Howe Street. The routes we chosen were the best routes we could find with the least impact to trees, because there's a lot of large limbs, and there were some trees getting destroyed, and actually a power line got destroyed during the first day of the detours. I don't have a great solution or even a better solution. If you guys do, by all means, let me know. There's really no good detour around Southport, and I don't think it matters where the detour is going to be. We would still get the same calls every single day by the customers. And I understand the concerns. I got a good call today, and every day this week about children, mostly on Howe Street. The children excited about the heavy equipment, and running towards the street. I get that. I also get that, parents need to take some responsibility. Hey, come here, little Johnny, let me hold your hand while we, get through this construction area. Because the machine runs 15 miles an hour, but it's 12 feet tall and 50,000 pounds. Of course, that's intimidating, but it's also intimidating for a car that runs 35 miles an hour down the same street on a typical day as well. I just don't have a good solution, a better solution for the detours, unfortunately. And it's not going to get better. This project's going to go on through the end of June, and as blocks progress, the detour will go from block to block up Lord Street, Atlantic Street, as it progresses. Yes, ma'am.
I was sitting here thinking about routes. Would it be productive maybe to have a message sign out to 11 a little bit to try to encourage people to come in from Jabbertown or Rob Gandy Road? I mean, you still get to the waterfront and everything that way. It's just you're coming down, and then going towards the water versus coming down Howe, which is just the routine everybody seems to be in. And trucks can safely travel Rob Gandy and Eastmore instead of like Lord Street and everything like that.
We did look into getting a few more message boards, but in order to do that, it would take more than one message board. We would have to get people off of 87-133 on the Rob Gandy, and then naturally when you get to the end of Rob Gandy, if I'm going to the waterfront, I'm going to turn right, which then takes me to where? It takes me to Atlantic. We would have to have one at the end of Rob Gandy, taking them left down, Leonard Street to Moore Street, and then one again on the right. So I did price renting two. It was quite substantial for 6 to 7 month period we would need. But that would just get vehicles down Rob Gandy. That was it, or trucks down Rob Gandy. There's no good solution for the others unless we purchased or rented more signage. And how many people follow the signs now? It's people know Southport. They know how to get around. They're going to go where they want to go, unfortunately.
Seems to me that for the benefit of the businesses on Howe Street, we want to get cars to Howe Street as much as possible. until they absolutely have to leave Howe Street. So if we tried to reroute them, were we thinking Robert Gandy to Leonard to what?
To keep them off Atlantic, it would be Rob Gandy to Leonard to Moore. But that would mostly benefit the large trucks going to the plants. But then you're still going to have the large trucks that have to get into town, which are going to go, their normal route anyway, or the route they know.
I don't think people are really going to pay a whole lot of attention to signs anyway. They're going to go where they want to go. I mean, it's a small town. They know it's a grid pattern. They know, and people know how to get around. They're going to turn where they want to turn and go where they want to go. I think we're just going to have to ask the citizens patience and understand that it's an inconvenience, and we're all going to have to do what we have to do to get through it. I mean, it's just a reality.
It's a necessary evil at this point, I think, without a great solution. Any other questions from the board? Not soon enough. Hopefully by the end, if everything goes as planned without any delays, end of June. Hopefully by the end of June. Hopefully sooner, but that's when the contract will be up, the end of June.
Tom, if you could you talk about the progression from this point, the fact that it's going to start working towards the water and then out of town, just to get that information out right now?
Okay, once they finish this block, which is between Nash and West Streets now, they've set the last manhole in front of West Street. They should be backfilling tomorrow, and then the next several days, filling back with stone, moving piles of dirt, getting the asphalt out of the way. Then they'll be packing up and moving down to Bay Street and moving towards into town. They'll go from Bay Street to Moore Street, then from Moore Street to Nash Street to where they first set the first manhole. And then that's probably still 2 months, 2.5 months. And then they'll pick up from go to West Street and start moving towards, for the block north.
And it has to go that way because
of the flow of the pipe, the flow of the sewer. Right now we're kind of in a bind where we started, so that's why we have to pick up. We're at a different elevation, so that's why we have to pick up and move back downtown to tie these first 2 blocks in, between Bay and Nash, so the flow will continue and not have any issues. We're doing this to solve issues, not create issues. So.
Tom and Gordon, can we, I think we're probably already doing this, but I want to just say anyway, can we please go out and give, when we're getting ready to, when we're a week or 2 away from moving to another block, can we please go door to door and tell the businesses that it's coming, that, starting whatever, next Monday, we're going to be out in front of your street tearing it up. So at least they know definitively it's coming.
Sure, I can facilitate that. I'm also putting updates on Facebook and the website as they come about. But I think that's a reasonable request.
Also, since you're going to be going into really the central business district area next, is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Then maybe if our public information officers could maybe get some signage just made that says Southport businesses are open, just to help the recognition that they're still open, even though it's the sidewalks or whatever. Just something that catches people's eye and reminds them that we're still open.
At some point and for some considerable time, I assume the intersection of Moore and Howe is going to be completely shut off. Is that correct?
It will. There's going to have to be a bypass pump in the center of it. Hopefully this block won't. It starts out shallow but gets pretty deep up at Moore Street, 14 to 16 foot deep at the intersection of Moore Street. So hopefully the first half of the block they can get through in about 2 weeks. The last half's going to be, kind of a struggle. So that block, that intersection will be tied down for some time. It will. They're working on their best route around it. There's not really a good route around it. You know, can't send it down Bay because of the traffic.
Love to just follow up, maybe work with DSI to make sure that everybody down along Howe and Moore is aware of what's coming.
Does service get interrupted when you disconnect these pipes, or they reflow, bypass?
No, they have a bypass pump. There's always a possibility of on the block that they're actually working on. Obviously, that sewer's not going anywhere. You know, it's just building in pipe. Yeah. There's certainly a possibility of we haven't had it yet, but there's certainly a possibility that a business or residence could be, you know, affected. But I already have, you know, plans in place for that as well. Got to wake up pretty early in the morning to get past me. Yes, sir.
And,
yes, sir.
And it has been, you've made it to where you still can get to the businesses. I had some phone calls complaining that we had ruined downtown business, but we did it at the best time that we possibly could. And I've been able to get down and maneuver, and so I appreciate what you've done.
It's just an inconvenience, and of course, nobody wants to be inconvenienced, you know, and that's the moral of the story. But I think we're doing the best we can to reroute everything, and we also, you know, letting people know that, you know, businesses and sidewalks do remain open. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Chief, do you have anything you'd like to add?
I sure do.
Okie dokie.
Yes, I do. So today has been an unusually busy day for the police department with complaints and calls about the situation with the detours. We've been dealing with that along, working with Tom, and we have put up additional signs. We had an additional sign put all the way out at the entrance by ADM to alert folks to take the Rob Gandy exit out of town. The calls and complaints we're getting, I've actually had pictures sent to me today of trucks on the side roads, but we've had citizens asking me to stop the trucks and move them and turn them around. We're not authorized to stop every 18-wheeler or large truck that comes up Howe Street. They're taking those side roads. Some of them are delivery trucks going to the restaurants and things of that nature. So a lot of people think that these are larger trucks that are getting lost and turned around. Believe me, they know where they're trying to get, and they're navigating the detour. And like Tom said, it is somewhat of an inconvenience, but we're just asking people to slow down, take your time, stop at the stop signs. That's one of the biggest things. We do have officers working both at the detours. We've written several tickets. So then I get calls from people. I've had my own family call, hey, they stopped me, and can you help me out? Well, I can't do that. So just be patient and just try to navigate around it. And we are looking at ways to, like Tom said, we moved some blocks off of the Atlantic side that were busy. We put it over on Rhett Street. Well, then we generated complaints doing that. So we are trying to look at it. I've sat out there, the officers, so again, we're just asking everybody to be patient and try to navigate. And just real quick about signage, we've actually had a motor vehicle accident that the vehicle drove into the hole in front of the Baptist church the other night. You all see all the cones, and there's just a whole plethora of signage, and they drove through there. There was one cone that was moved over, and they drove through it and said they were confused. So just again, be mindful and just be, you know, aware of your surroundings. But we are looking at it. So some have asked about putting speed bumps on the side roads. The only thing I looked at sitting there, and I've mentioned it, I think, to Manager Hargrove, there's a possibility that we could put some stop signs along the detour route. I've looked at different construction zones, and sometimes when they're long and drawn out like this one, they've actually got the diamond-shaped signs that have a stop sign in it. They're for detours like this. Some of the long stretches on Atlantic Avenue where we already have stop signs, we could maybe put four-way stops temporarily as it moves and adjust down both of these side roads. That may be something that would help out. So that's just an idea. But if anybody has any questions for me.
Yeah, Todd, I have something.
Yes, sir.
I had gotten a complaint, a while ago about trucks coming through town.
Yes, sir.
And I looked into, I called the state, and the state said they can't do anything because it's a state road and the trucks have
Yes,
the
sir.
right to go there. But I also talked to ADM, and the GPS is still sending the trucks through town.
Right.
And to try to change the GPS, I've tried to talk to them, maybe you'd have more luck, but to get the GPS to bring the trucks down Rob Gandy
Right.
and not into town. That would solve a lot of
Well,
problems.
I think that the request is in for that, Mr. Lombardi. I believe that request was submitted a while back when they completed the Rob Gandy extension. It's supposed to be built in, but I think and I can try to make a call and see if I can get up with the right rep with the state to see, but I think it's still going to show Howe Street is still a recommended route because, again, it is a state road.
Yeah.
I've had citizens ask me before, is there something we can do to stop them, like I said, and turn them around, but we can't
No.
stop them and turn
you
them
can't.
around. And we've actually went out and talked with ADM, the security guards, and talked with them and just kind of reminding them. But honestly, I think some of them just like to kind of drive through our scenic, beautiful little town, and they want to take the loop through. I wouldn't want to try to turn at the corner driving an 18-wheeler, but again, I don't drive 18-wheelers. But I think I'll try to make a call and see. But I think that both are still recognized as a trucking route. Now to remove Howe Street, I had somebody ask me that, how to remove that as a trucking route. I mean, I'd have to check on the steps for that, and I don't know if that's even possible. But
Okay, thanks.
yes, sir. Anybody else? Okay, thank you.
So it looks like with a little bit of patience, we'll get through Howe Street. The next item I'd like to talk to you about is the hiring of a code enforcement officer. A few months ago, we passed our new UDO. We've currently have Kate Marshall operating in that capacity. However, it's really difficult for her to be the APS officer and the code enforcement officer. So Melanie and I worked diligently today to find out where this money would come from. We've had a couple of retirements this year that are going to open up some salary funding. So it really wouldn't be adding to the salary much, if any at all. So what we're trying to do is, it'll take a little while to get this position hired. So we're looking for about 4 months, which would be about $25,000. And we do have that with the retirements that we currently have. And then we'd work it in to the New Year's budget. So I would like your permission to move forward to advertise that position. I think it's important that we've got the new UDO. It's time to start enforcing some of the problem areas that we have here in the city. So I would like to know what the board's pleasure is as far as moving forward with advertising this position.
I agree with you 100%. We do need a code enforcement officer, no doubt.
I'm in support of hiring that position.
Yeah, I'd make a motion to allow the city manager to move forward with creating and filling that position.
Second, everybody.
Okay, we have a motion by Alderman Allen, a second by everybody. Any further discussion? All in favor? Okay, motion carried unanimously. Thank you.
The next item I have is, I know when we were working on the budget this past year, one of the topics that we talked about were employee raises. We wanted to see how well the town was doing in January. Well, here we are. I would like for you to put this conversation on your radar. I had intended to talk about it a little more in depth this evening. However, our finance director, Melanie Trexler, could not be here this evening because I wanted to do a little bit more deeper dive into our finances so that she could actually give you an accurate report of where we were financially for the year. I can sit here and tell you that we look good, but I would like for her to drill down a little bit deeper than we look good. So I'd like to put that on your radar, and that we will be discussing it next February at the February meeting. The next item that I'd like to discuss with you is, it's that time of the year. It's budget season. So I would like you to pull your calendars out. Mayor Hayden and I have discussed, as opposed to having day-long meetings and retreats, we'd like to break these up into half days for a couple of reasons. Number one, when we spend 8 hours around one another, it increases our exposure levels to each other. And number two, an 8-hour budget session, as well as I love talking about finance, I'm sure it kind of puts people to sleep sometimes. So I would like for you to look at your calendar in February, and let's come up with some dates that we can have a couple of budget workshops. And by the way, y'all have this nice little handy book if you want to. So,
Are you thinking Saturdays for the retreat?
I'd like to do them during the week. If it must be a Saturday, then that's what we'll do. I think in the past we've done Saturdays because some of our aldermen worked jobs, full-time jobs. With the exception of Alderman Spencer, I think most everyone here is retired now. Well, you will be in February. You'll be there.
You're close enough.
Easy, Mark.
I'd just maybe like to put in that we've got the Yacht Basin meeting scheduled for February 2nd and 16th. So we might want to avoid those days. We've obviously got our meeting and the planning board meeting, so it'd probably be nice to avoid those days. But
I think if we did them on Mondays, would that be amenable, City Manager? Is that good for you?
Yes.
Mondays would be good. So if we did either 2 Mondays in a row or every other Monday, that would probably work for everyone. And since I don't work, every day's open, right?
How will Monday?
I know I'm easy to forget. It's okay.
How would Monday the 8th and the 15th work?
Fine for me. The 15th is President's Day, a holiday. Well, I mean, not that I'm celebrating especially, but
I'm ready to do it 8:30, although Alderman Spencer wasn't.
why so late?
We can do it in the morning, we can do it in the afternoon, it's just whatever your pleasure.
Let's do the morning. 9 o'clock?
9's good.
So we're saying 9 o'clock on the 8th and the 15th.
Here in the
And
community
these
building.
are public meetings.
I would like to let you know that it's probably going to be, we're probably going to need more than just these two. So just keep that in mind when we're looking at our schedule as we move forward. So thank you. And I would like you also to open up your calendar again. We've received quite a few applications for the city clerk position. It's time to do some interviews. So I think we can knock these out in one day. It's probably going to be a full day, or at least 2/3 of a day. So can you please look at your calendar again, and let's figure out a time that we can set up these interviews.
Are you looking for January meeting to do this, I'm assuming, or?
Well,
You
right
rather
now,
February?
I'm concerned about Alderman Mostedler's schedule because she's kind of working phased retirement right now.
So when's good for you, Pro Tem? Okay.
Yes.
This is not a public meeting, right? All right.
Similar to the meeting we had when we hired city manager. Yes, exactly.
So what we'll do is we'll start at 9 a.m. I'll schedule the first interview for 10 o'clock so that we'll have an opportunity to go through the resumes, the questions, how we're going to do it. And I really don't think each interview will take an hour, although I'd like to allot it for an hour. When I communicate with the applicants, I'll ask them to be here a half hour early so we can keep moving. Does that sound good for everyone? Okay.
I mean, the first interview is at 10. So that's 10, 11. We got to eat lunch at some point. Are we going to do that? Try to interview while we're eating with somebody? So we only do 2, and then we eat from 12 to 1, and then we have interviews at 1, 2, 3, and 4, and end at 5. Is there any way we could start at 8 and have the first interview at 9? Well, I would propose that we do that.
Point, I'd like to ask Heather Hemphill to come into the hall. So, you know, here at the city, we get accused of dragging our feet a lot and that everything that we do is slow. And, you know, there's always a method to our madness, and there's a reason that we're slower than the private industry. We have to work within the framework and statutory requirements of what North Carolina tells us we have to do. I've got some really great news tonight, and I'd like to share with the board. But I want you to know, before I share this news with you, that this wouldn't have happened without Heather Hemphill's constant drive, her taking care of her due diligence, and I know that she is tired of hearing from me. And I know that Kama is tired of hearing from us. What I'd like to share with you this evening, and it's on Heather Hemphill that has driven this, is our certificate of exemption to build our city dock. We are going to start construction of our dock, our long-awaited repair. We're moving forward. This says so. So, thank you, Heather. And that's it for me, unless y'all have any questions.
Any questions for the city manager? We're way ahead of you on that. Yeah, we're there. We're just, yeah. Well, some places we can and some places we can't, so, but we're there. I can assure you, we have had that discussion many times. All right, any other questions? Okay. All right, thank you for that great report, great news that, you know, the city dock is going to be repaired. I know Jody will be happy. He'll be out there tomorrow with a hammer, I'm sure. So I'm grateful for that, and thank you, Heather Hemphill, for what you've done to get this through, and city manager as well, moving this project forward. Mayor's comments. I have not many, but I have a few things I would like to mention that are good things for our city. First of all, officers of the year. I want to make sure that everyone knows and saw that Chief Todd Coring was named Law Enforcement Officer of the Year by the American Legion of North Carolina. So not just the local Legion, but the American Legion of North Carolina. So congratulations, Chief. It's an honor for it's such an honor for you as Chief and for our city. And also Southport Rotary Club's 2020 Officer of the Year, Southport Police Officer Eric Maines. So how wonderful is it for our police department to be honored this way. So congratulations to you both, and thank you for your service and what your department does and continues to do for our community. And then congratulations to Southport native Charlie Miller, recently taking the oath of office to represent us in the NC House District 19. We appreciate his continued service to our community. And he was on the front page of the Pilot a couple weeks ago. It was a great photo. And if you've not already read the wonderful article in the Pilot by Lee Hennett on retired building inspector Mr. Wayne Strickland, and I have it here. And I learned things that I didn't know about Wayne, but here it is below the fold. And he was hired by the city on January 30th, 1995, which is the same day, that evening, he had to face the challenge of the Southport Community Building burning down. This site right here was aflames. I'm sure you will hear, Chief. And from the article, you can see that Mr. Strickland is a very talented man, and again, we wish him well in his retirement. Also on the front page of the Pilot, the heritage of the fishing village continues. This is a great photo. If you haven't seen it, please read it. John Dozier, Southport native, on the front page with his fishing mates, catching a 660-pound bluefin tuna. I don't know how you bring it in or catch it or get it even in your boat. And they brought it in to Potter's Seafood. So how wonderful is that to still have a working, fish house in Southport. I'd also like to recognize Southport physician and colleague Dr. Andre Miner, who's practiced medicine in Southport since 1990. On his appointment as Dozier Memorial Hospital Medical Chief of Staff for 2021, he succeeds Dr. Terry Pieper, also a longtime Southport physician. We appreciate their service to the hospital and to our community. Vaccine update. This changes almost hourly. Governor Cooper announced today that the state would start allowing anyone the age of 65 and over to be eligible to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. So that's all of us except the First Lady. As mayor, I will continue to do everything that I can to obtain more vaccines for our citizens and to open the community building to promote larger numbers of vaccine distribution. We have the talent in our city to do so, and we have institutions that will assist us in setting this up as a vaccination site. I started this discussion with health officials on December 30th. We will continue to assist the distribution and vaccination of our citizens. I appreciate the efforts made by the Brunswick County Commissioners and Brunswick County Mayors in obtaining more vaccines for our citizens. I received my immunization through Dozier Hospital last week. Minimal arm soreness, a little fatigue. That was it. Did not be reluctant to receive the vaccine. I know this is difficult, but I encourage patience. The vaccine will be in larger supply each week. The allocation has been slower than expected, and the appointments are made based on the amount of vaccine available. Continue to try to register on my chart. Go online for more information, including the city, county, and local hospital websites. Call available numbers, and remember, if you can practice the public health mitigation measures, you will remain disease-free until you receive your shot. Vaccine on the shelf and not in the arm is not helpful. The state will continue to distribute more vaccine, and Southport is ready to help. I want to thank Ms. Roxy Smith and the Southport Women's Club for asking me to speak virtually on the COVID-19 pandemic. I did so on January 6th. We reviewed the data, and I discussed my plan with them concerning vaccination distribution. They are ready to volunteer in any way they can assist. I appreciated that and the opportunity to represent the city as mayor. Our next meeting will be our workshop where we will discuss projects, priorities, and strategic planning. And I want the citizens of Southport to know that we are continuing to work on a number of projects, including, as you have noticed, the sewer project on Howe Street. I want to thank the citizens for their cooperation and patience and thank the city manager, Mr. Hargrove, and Police Chief Coring and his officers in making the detours as safe and as efficient as possible. And I want to thank the Board of Aldermen for many things, but and all city employees for their continued hard work and cooperation as we try to move forward in 2020. There's always more, but I'll stop now except for one last item. Set your DVRs Thursday at 8 p.m. for the new TV show, Mr. Mayor, starring Ted Danson. He is a great actor from his days on Cheers, and this show will be a successful comedy. I've watched the first 2 episodes. He and I, the only thing we have in common, we have gray hair. That's it. He's much more talented. So anyway, thank you, and appreciate everyone's endeavors in making our city a better place. Staff reports, they are provided in your agenda packet. Any updates from city staff? Okay. All right, thank you. Board comments. Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Mayor. Just real quick, I just want to continue once again to remind citizens that they have questions about what's going on. Please don't hesitate to reach out to to us, to any of the aldermen, to the city manager, or any staff. We'll be happy to try to provide information to you. Don't let your questions go unanswered. Please reach out to us. Thank you.
Yeah, that is such a great comment, because our numbers are on the website. I mean, you can email us, you can call us. I mean, we're very available, and so please don't let your questions go unanswered. Mr. Spencer.
Yes, sir. I'll try to be brief, and welcome and congratulate Mr. David Trulio and his better half, Miss Bev Hammond, for surviving an alderman's meeting. Welcome. Glad to see y'all, even though you're on the other side. I couldn't see you the whole time. But thanks for hanging in there and being involved. Matt Thorne and his sign issue. How are we going to move forward and set up a time where we'll talk about that, or is it just a committee? Is there a way we can set a time where we get together with the business people and work on that? I won't make you commit to anything right this second. Birthday wishes. Today is Mayor Robert Howard's birthday. We want to wish him a happy birthday, and know he's out there having fun. It looked like he was buying a car at some kind of car show on Facebook with Coup, and we want him to know that we love him and are with him this year. That was today. Yesterday was Mr. Robert is very important to me. He's a hero. But my biggest hero, his birthday was yesterday. And he would have been 87 years old. And his name was Jerry Spencer. And he was a lifelong resident of Southport. He was a city employee. His father, Joe Spencer, was a city employee. They probably built some of these things that we're tearing up. Worked in the electric plant that was at the hospital that was sort of sold. I spent many a day going up into that building and tracking him down or whatever. And 87 years. He's been gone for 9 years. And the reason I had him on my mind is he never came up. He never used words. It wasn't, I love Southport. Oh, I love Southport. I love this. I love that. He lived by action 100%. And I think a lot of times we use a lot of words to convince people of our intent. He proved it his entire life, and I strive to do that. Try not to be too wordy. Unfortunately, I have my mother's side of me. I honor him by, if you see me riding around an old white truck with a Wolfpack symbol on the back of it, that's my daddy's truck. And yeah, I could go buy anything I wanted to, but that truck means more in the world to me, riding around Southport, trying to hold on to that piece of Southport that I know that was so beautiful. And so happy birthday and have a day. Thank you.
For that tribute, beautiful tribute. Thank you, Alderman Spencer. Alderman Sharkey.
Thank you for sharing, Mark. Appreciate that history. I don't have the privilege of having as much history with Southport as you guys do, but I do care for it very, very much. First thing I want to say is there's free magnets on how to recycle properly and some free pocket ashtrays out front. If anybody knows somebody who could use one of those at home, you're free to take them. Keep Brunswick County Beautiful supplied those, and I'm just trying to distribute them as best I can. I would like to talk briefly about the nature park idea with the ferry land or the ferry road property that we have figuratively discussed so far. We're not in a position to make a financial offer to purchase that land, and there's a time frame concern, I think. I was contacted by a friend in real estate today that had the impression that there may be an offer coming forward on that land. I think it's time for us to actively seek a partner, maybe in this endeavor that maybe has the availability of some funds quicker than we do, because we're basing our purchase of other land on sale of land that is going to take some time to get through a process with the state. The state can't do that, overnight. So I went ahead and I spoke to a friend that's in, land development and all that, and they highly recommended reaching out to Coastal Land Trust, which I had done in the past, but we weren't where we are today. So I've reinitiated that contact today to see if maybe they can be a working partner in this, because I'm just concerned about our time frame. And I would hate to see that land get away from us before we have the ability to make an honest offer to take control of it. So that's where that's at. If there's anyone else that has recommendations on partnerships, I also think Brunswick County could be a viable partner in their park system or something. So perhaps we should reach out to the county manager and see if that's a viable option for this kind of acquisition, or any other nonprofits that are in land conservation protection of property. So just wanted to put that out there. Casey Cook and I, the Wildlife Resources Officer, we spoke, or staff person, she's not an officer like, animal control, but she and I spoke last Friday, and the time frame that she gave me for the state to appropriate funds and do everything they need to do to maybe acquire the 400 acres from us is a year. It's not going to happen quickly. So that's why I'm more concerned now, knowing that I don't know if we have a year to wait on the Ferry Road property. I just have that feeling from that discussion I had today with a friend that we might not have that time. So the other item that I'd like to touch on tonight is communication. And I'm very pleased that we have such a wonderful newsletter. The additions that have come out so far are so good. I'm just wondering if it's possible to distribute that a little bit through the mail, because I know we're expanding each month. You do get more people that sign up for the email version, but I also know that there's still a segment of our community that doesn't do online stuff so much. And where I would like to start with that is, like, we have 20 people that are on a list right now with the police department that live alone. They're very, isolated, and the police call them every day and do that welfare check. Is there a way that we could find, the money existing either in our budget, the alderman's budget, or in tourism, to make that reach to those people that don't have much contact, that most likely don't have home computers, based on what a conversation I've had with the people that make the phone calls to them? Can we find a way to maybe start reaching out with that paper version of a newsletter? And if that's not possible in our budget, then let me know. But I'm just asking that maybe we try to distribute that newsletter a little bit more than just by electronic, because it's a very good communication piece. And I just want to make sure that it gets in everybody's hands as much as possible. So other than that, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for that excellent suggestion. Low Davis.
Couple of things. I just want to share with you the extent of my frustration in trying to get an appointment for COVID-19 vaccination. I feel like I've been caught in some kind of sci-fi loop. I've had a MyChart with Novant for about 6 years. I've called the county. The county number now routes you with a voicemail telling you to sign up for the MyChart. It just goes on and on. But I'm assured that this is, eventually we're going to get the doses and it will even out. But if you're really frustrated and you want to vent, call me. I'd love to hear your story. But I have something else to bring to your attention. It's not something that we have the authority to do anything about, but it's worth knowing what's going on. And that's this. I imagine everybody has seen when you go up 211, just past St. James entrance. If you keep going toward 17, over on your right is this vast amount of clear-cut land, and in the middle there always seems to be miraculously a big pile of dirt. And I've wondered for years, what are they doing there? And it became pretty obvious that what they're doing is taking dirt and fill from somewhere else, bringing it in, and then using that to even out to try to literally raise the level of the land, because it's very, very wet. Well, now, why are they doing this? It turns out that there is a change of zoning request to the county, and the public hearing is going to be on January the 19th at 6 in the Commissioner's Chambers at the county at 30 Government Center up in Bolivia. And what it is this. This is 135.7 acres. That's a lot of land. And they are seeking to change from commercial low density to commercial intensive density. And the plan, although not solidified and put forth specifically, the plan is for it to be very much on the order of Mayfair in Wilmington. And if you've ever been there, you know what this means. But for us, what this will mean, I fear, is a very negative impact on our central business district and possibly Southport Crossing. Again, this is county property, and we don't even have any property that's adjacent, so we don't have any standing to step in and make a decision. But it's good to know what's going on, and since it's a public hearing and we are residents of the county, if we have something to say about it, please go and please say what you have to say. I'm going to try to be there myself. Thank you. That's it for me.
Thank you, Madam Alderman. Mr. Lombardi.
Yeah, I just want to urge everybody to hang in there and get through this next time with this COVID and everything else that's going on. And I gotta wish everybody a Happy New Year, and I hope it's a lot better than last. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lombardi. Mayor Pro Tem.
I don't really have anything specifically, except I do want to celebrate the dock, the city dock. We've all had unbelievable conversations. This has been since it was destroyed at Matthew in 2016. So this has been quite the journey, and I am very grateful for the outcome.
Absolutely, great news. Well, thank you all for your participation, your comments. We look forward to the workshop. Everyone stay well, stay safe, stay Southport strong. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Okay, second? Okay, all in favor? Motion carried. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.